The heavy atmosphere of the courtroom spread through the silence that reached up to the high ceilings. The afternoon sun filtering through the windows cast a pale gleam on the wooden benches. Journalists gathered in the back rows, notebooks resting on their laps, pens ready as they waited, while families seated in the front rows exchanged anxious glances. 23-year-old Marcus Hayes sat in the defendant's chair, legs casually stretched out, his left arm draped over the back of the chair, surveying everyone entering the courtroom with a condescending gaze. His dark suit was neatly pressed, his hair slicked back with gel. A constant smile played on his face, dismissive, self-assured, almost defiant. His attorney sitting beside him would occasionally whisper something, but Marcus barely listened, sometimes interrupting his lawyer to voice his own opinion. The trial had been going on for 3 months. Marcus was accused of severely injuring another party following a traffic altercation. The incident had started with a simple horn honking, escalated into a verbal argument, and ultimately ended in violence. The victim, Robert Sullivan, a 55-year-old retired teacher, had spent days in the hospital, dealing with broken ribs and internal bleeding. Marcus's attitude during previous hearings had always been the same. He would smirk while witnesses testified, shrugging at the victim's family's tears. Once during a recess, he told reporters in the hallway, "This whole thing is blown out of proportion. 2 grown men got into a fight. It's that simple." He continued posting photos on his social media accounts from luxury restaurants, posing with sports cars. Under each post, he would add notes like, "Life goes on." His attorney argued that Marcus had been provoked, that he had acted within the bounds of self-defense. However, security cameras and witness statements told a different story. The footage clearly showed Marcus throwing the first punch, continuing to kick the other party while he was on the ground. Today was decision day. The court had evaluated all evidence, heard witness testimonies, and reviewed reports and documents. The courtroom was packed. The victim's family, Marcus's family, lawyers, journalists, and curious citizens filled every corner of the room. Judge Catherine Morrison, in her 60s with graying hair and serious features, was an experienced jurist. In her 30-year career, she had presided over thousands of cases. She knew people, their behaviors, their remorse, and their arrogance well. She had observed Marcus's behavior during the hearings, sighing and taking notes each time. "Please rise," said the court clerk. The room stood. Judge Morrison took the file before her, put on her glasses, and began to speak. "We are here for the sentencing hearing in case number 2024/387. We have evaluated the case against the defendant, Marcus Hayes, for assault causing bodily harm. In light of all collected evidence, witness statements, expert reports, and security camera footage." Marcus still maintained his relaxed posture. That dismissive expression remained on his face. He turned to his attorney and whispered in a low voice, "Don't worry, we'll get probation at most." The judge continued, "The defendant, through his behavior during the hearings, has disregarded the victim's suffering and the hardship endured by his family, shown no signs of remorse, and instead displayed a dismissive attitude toward the incident. This conduct has been a significant factor in our panel's evaluation." For the first time, slight tension appeared on Marcus's face. His attorney touched his arm, but Marcus still didn't look worried. "This court has concluded that the evidence is clear and unequivocal, that the defendant intentionally and severely injured the victim, and that the conditions for self-defense were not present. Security camera footage shows that the defendant was the aggressor, and that the assault continued while the victim was in a defenseless state. The atmosphere in the room grew heavier. Marcus was now sitting up straight, His hands gripped the armrests of his chair. Therefore, this court has decided to convict defendant Marcus Hayes of assault causing bodily harm under the relevant provisions of the California Penal Code. Marcus's face suddenly paled. His eyes widened. The defendant's lack of remorse, disrespectful attitude toward the victim's family, failure to comprehend the seriousness of the incident, and dismissive behavior during hearings have necessitated the denial of any mitigating reduction. The defendant is hereby sentenced to 6 years and 9 months imprisonment. "What?" Marcus shouted, jumping to his feet. His voice was trembling. "Did you say 6 years? This has to be a joke." "Defendant, please be seated," the judge said in a stern voice. "Furthermore, this sentence shall not be suspended pending finalization of the judgment. The defendant shall not be released on bail." Marcus collapsed into the chair. His face had turned ashen, his hands shaking uncontrollably. His chest was rising and falling rapidly, struggling to breathe. "Court is adjourned," the judge said, closing the file. The room suddenly came alive. The victim's family embraced each other and began crying. These were tears of joy. Journalists were quickly taking notes, snapping photos. Marcus's mother had jumped to her feet, crying, "My son! My son!" Marcus was bent over in his chair, head in his hands. His shoulders were shaking. Tears began streaming down his cheeks. All that brazen posture, self-confident manner, dismissive smile, had vanished in an instant. What remained was just a frightened young man beginning to understand the weight of reality. "Counselor," he said in a trembling voice, "what are we going to do? Appeal? Objection? Something?" His attorney shook his head. "The evidence is too clear, Marcus. The cameras show everything. Plus, your behavior during the hearings. I warned you. I told you that you needed to show remorse. But you didn't listen." "But 6 years!" Marcus's voice was now a childlike wail. 6 years in prison! I can't handle this." 2 bailiffs approached Marcus. "Please stand up." Marcus tried to stand, but his legs wouldn't hold him. The bailiffs grabbed him by the arms. As the handcuffs were fastened, Marcus was sobbing. "Mom!" he cried out. "Mom, help me!" His mother tried to run to him down the corridor, but security officers stopped her. "My son! My baby boy!" she cried. As they led Marcus toward the exit, his legs were dragging. Tears had soaked his shirt collar. Journalists waiting in the corridor to get shots of him now saw a very different Marcus, a crying, pleading, broken young man. "Please," he begged the reporters, "don't take pictures. Please." But the flashes kept firing. Tomorrow all the newspapers would have these images on their front pages. Arrogant defendant collapses after verdict. Justice served. Defendant breaks down in tears. As Marcus was loaded into the prison transport vehicle, the last 3 months flashed through his mind. His behavior during the hearings, his social media posts, the disrespect he showed to the victim's family. He hadn't listened to any of his attorney's warnings, thinking, "I come from a wealthy family. Nothing will happen to me." Now he was facing reality. As the vehicle pulled away, Marcus looked out the window. The crowd gathered in front of the courthouse was watching the car. Some were applauding. The victim's family, tears streaming, embraced each other, finally feeling that justice had been served. Robert Sullivan, the elderly teacher, had been suffering in a hospital bed 3 months ago, while Marcus was posting party photos on social media. Now Robert and his family had some relief. The injustice done had been recognized and punished by the court. On the road to prison, Marcus continued to cry silently. For the first time, he was truly facing the consequences of his own actions. Arrogance and brazenness hadn't protected him. Wealth hadn't saved him. Justice had finally prevailed. Judge Morrison sat in her chambers, looking out the window. She had been doing this job for 30 years, and these were the moments she cherished most, when justice truly worked, when society's faith was renewed. She had seen many defendants like Marcus, young, arrogant, people who didn't care about consequences, and she had witnessed the moment each of them faced reality. Perhaps, she thought, perhaps this young man will truly change during the years he spends in prison. Perhaps he'll learn to empathize, to understand others' pain. Perhaps when he gets out, he'll be a better person. But for now, that was just a hope. Right now, justice had been served, and society had witnessed it. No one was above the law. No one's arrogance could protect them. Marcus's tears were perhaps the first real step he had taken in his life, toward remorse and awareness. The transport vehicle disappeared down the street, carrying him toward a future he had never imagined. One where consequences were real, where privilege meant nothing, and where he would have years to contemplate the pain he had caused another human being. In the courtroom, as people filed out, whispers filled the air. Some felt satisfaction, others felt sympathy, but all agreed on one thing. Justice, true justice, had been delivered today.